You're mistaken if you think billionaires are all yachts, private jets, and headline-grabbing parties. Behind the glamour, the ultra-rich fall into patterns, distinct archetypes that govern how they build, preserve, and project their wealth. Some quietly compound fortunes for decades without anyone noticing. Others command empires with style, culture, or technology. In this video, we're breaking down the 7 levels of billionaires. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand not just who the richest people are, but how they think, operate, and multiply influence in ways that most of us can barely imagine. The luxury emperor, stylish, brand-built. This is the billionaire who doesn't just make money. He or she builds a world that signals power, taste, and influence without a single flashy Instagram post. At the core is a luxury conglomerate, maisons spanning fashion, watches, jewelry, beauty, wines, spirits, selective retail, and hospitality. The secret is scale, control, and pricing power. Take Bernard Arnault and LVMH. With around 75 iconic brands under his belt and 84.7 billion euros in revenue in 2024, Arnault demonstrates the blueprint of the luxury emperor. Every acquisition, whether Tiffany & Company, Fendi, or Dior, is strategically chosen. It's not just a purchase, it's a platform to elevate, consolidate, and magnify value. Each maison shares talent, retail intelligence, and production resources, creating a flywheel where one success powers the next. But luxury emperors go beyond products. They shape culture itself. Flagship stores like Dior on Avenue Montaigne, the restored La Samaritaine in Paris, and the Cheval Blanc Hotel are not just retail points. They are soft power statements. Every visitor experiences the brand's story, reinforcing aura and prestige. And the Fondation Louis Vuitton, a museum-grade, publicly facing institution, showcasing masterpieces and creating cultural credibility that trickles down to every LVMH product. Arnault's signals are subtle, impeccably tailored suits, minimal jewelry, private jets rented when needed, and homes that are functional yet elegantly discreet. His wealth isn't announced by supercars or flamboyant yachts. It's felt in the global footprint of his brands, the museums, and the cultural capital that flows from curated experiences. Luxury emperors compound wealth and influence differently from the quiet compounder. Where Ortega lets buildings, grids, and wind farms silently do the work, Arnault leverages iconic products, flagship experiences, and cultural institutions. The result is a flywheel. Culture elevates brand, brand commands pricing power, pricing funds more culture. It's wealth that doesn't just accumulate, it radiates, shaping markets, taste, and desire globally. Right at the moment you think these strategies are all about sophistication and calm control, luxury emperors throw in moves that make the world notice. Multi-billion-dollar acquisitions, landmark museum openings, and city-shaping retail transformations. The stage is set, the brands are elevated, and yet behind every polished facade is a carefully engineered system of growth, influence, and compounding power. Do you think that's the pinnacle of calculated empire building? Wait until we explore the tech maximalist, where speed, audacity, and public spectacle become the engine of billionaire power, and fortunes swing by the hour, not the decade. The contrast is staggering. The tech maximalist, provocateur, and engineer. If the luxury emperor quietly commands influence through culture and icons, the tech maximalist thrives in chaos and spectacle. This is the billionaire who doesn't wait for the market. He makes the market, and he does it in real time. We're talking about Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, X, and Frontier A, I like Grok. His empire isn't built on decades of slow compounding or curated elegance. It's built on audacity, velocity, and public narrative. With the tech maximalist, wealth volatility isn't a problem, it's a feature. Musk lost $200 billion in 2022, then watched markets rebound, and the swings didn't stop him from doubling down. Every launch, every tweet, every meme becomes part of a larger feedback loop. The product, the persona, and the market are all inseparable. When he posts about Dogecoin or teases a rocket launch, the world reacts, markets move, and billions shift hands live. The signals are unmistakable. Unlike luxury emperors in Savile Row suits, the tech maximalist wears founder uniform minimalism. Plain black tees, unbranded jackets, little jewelry. Status is measured in payload mass, pre-orders, and Starship launches, not wristwatches or mansions. His toys? Cybertrucks, stainless steel rockets, Gulfstream jets, broadcast innovation and scale more effectively than words ever could. Execution speed is the secret weapon. Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, and XAI are all built to iterate at breakneck pace. Rapid unscheduled disassemblies, missed deadlines, and supply chain hiccups aren't failures, they're proof of velocity. Pre-orders, stunts, and memes aren't marketing, they're real-time R&D and market testing tools. Every misstep is public, every success magnified. The tech maximalist doesn't just play the game, he rewrites it while millions watch. But here's the kicker. The combination of spectacle and execution breeds outsized influence. Investors, employees, media, and even competitors become part of the narrative ecosystem. One well-timed tweet can move crypto markets, sway public sentiment, or generate hiring waves. In a sense, the tech maximalist doesn't just manage companies, he manages attention, culture, and capital in tandem. Just when you think this model is untouchable, the tech maximalist introduces his ultimate paradox. Extreme public exposure meets extreme personal minimalism. Houses sold, luxury minimized, yet machines and launches dominate headlines. It's a balance between chaos and control, and it's why the world can't look away. If you thought watching a luxury emperor manipulate culture was impressive, the tech maximalist shows what happens when influence moves at the speed of a rocket, and trust me, the next billionaire type will flip your assumptions about wealth entirely. Have you been fascinated so far? Smash that like button because what comes next? The philanthropic statesman reveals how some billionaires wield global power, not through spectacle or brands, but through systems, spreadsheets, and solving problems that affect millions. The quiet compounder, understated operator. When most people think of billionaires, they imagine yachts, flashy cars, or Instagram-ready mansions. But the quiet compounder plays a completely different game. These are the billionaires who make money silently, methodically, almost invisibly, and then turn it into more money over decades, without ever seeking the spotlight. Take Amancio Ortega, for example. The founder of Inditex, the company behind Zara, is the textbook quiet compounder. He doesn't chase headlines. He doesn't post selfies of his private jet. Instead, he controls roughly 59% of Inditex through his family office, Ponte Gadea, and in 2023 alone, he collected about 2.2 billion euros in dividends. Every euro flows back into carefully chosen assets, prime real estate, regulated infrastructure, and renewable energy projects. Ortega's approach is simple but brutally effective. Build a cash-generating core, harvest the returns, and recycle them into long-term, inflation-resistant investments. His purchases aren't glamorous castles or super yachts, they're office towers, logistics hubs, and city center buildings leased to stable, investment-grade tenants. Royal Bank Plaza in Toronto, a prime office tower in Seattle, and a former BBC building in London. These are the trophies, not flashy mansions. And it's not just quantity, it's quality. Ortega prefers low leverage, largely debt-free purchases, and long-term leases that provide steady, predictable cash flows. It's a barbell strategy. Durability on one side, yield on the other. Dividends from Inditex refill the war chest. And when the market wobbles, he doesn't panic. He invests more, quietly compounding for decades. Beyond offices and logistics, Ortega has quietly expanded into regulated infrastructure and renewables. Stakes in Spain's grid operator, Portugal's REN, and Repsol Renewables show a deliberate tilt toward inflation-indexed, contracted yields. In 2023 alone, Ponte Gadea tripled energy investments to 693 million euros. It's a strategy that marries safety with growth, blending predictability with compounding power. And lifestyle? Ortega is famously understated. He wears the same blue blazer, white shirt, and gray trousers. His philanthropy is targeted and discreet. 320 million euros in cancer equipment for Spanish hospitals, scholarships for high school students to study abroad. Everything reinforces the quiet compounder ethos. Methodical, disciplined, focused on results, not attention. In short, the quiet compounder owns a cash machine, harvests the dividends, invests in the right assets, and repeats over decades through cycles, quietly compounding influence and wealth. It's almost invisible, but devastatingly effective. But not all billionaires play the invisible game. Some build empires in the public eye, turning brands, culture, and style into multi-billion-dollar powerhouses. And when you see how Bernard Arnault and LVMH execute this playbook, you realize there's a whole different level of strategy, spectacle, and subtle influence at work. The philanthropic statesman, systems-level givers. While some billionaires flaunt yachts or launch rockets, the philanthropic statesman wields wealth quietly but powerfully, shaping systems that touch millions of lives. This is the archetype defined not by spectacle, but by structured, measurable impact. Bill Gates is the blueprint, converting Microsoft stock into a multi-billion-dollar engine for global problem-solving. Gates' strategy is deliberate. He doesn't just write checks, he designs platforms. Vaccines, public health initiatives, education reforms, all orchestrated through specialist partners like Gavi or the Global Fund. Each dollar is tracked, each outcome quantified, and each commitment aligned with long-term, scalable goals. By 2024, the Gates Foundation managed a $77.2 billion endowment and had delivered over $83 billion in grants, numbers that turn private capital into public leverage. The key is leverage, not luxury. A single dollar invested through these systems can be multiplied many times through co-financing, government partnerships, or negotiated procurement. Transparency is a signal of authority. Searchable databases, annual letters, and global summits show the world exactly where the resources are going, anchoring credibility in data rather than headlines. Lifestyle is almost irrelevant here. In contrast to tech maximalists or luxury emperors, the statesman's homes and toys barely register. The Lake Washington estate is the exception, not the norm. Power is exercised through influence, information, and systems, not through private jets, yachts, or supercars. His status is derived from measurable outcomes: millions of children immunized, diseases eradicated, education systems strengthened. Yet even within this calm, there are strategic tensions. Allocating billions across global health, education, and development requires navigating politics, currency fluctuations, and varying donor priorities. Every grant, every partnership is scrutinized, and mistakes are amplified by public attention. Unlike a business empire, impact is the currency, and the stakes are measured in human lives rather than profit margins. What makes the philanthropic statesman fascinating is that the scale of influence is immense, yet largely invisible. Gates doesn't need a flashy mansion or headline-grabbing acquisition to cement authority. The systems themselves speak louder than any personal display. The arc of his work exemplifies patience, strategy, and a singular focus on outcomes over optics. And right at the moment you think wealth only buys toys, power, or spectacle, the statesman flips the narrative. A billionaire's reach can be global, profound, and systemic, yet remain largely unseen by the public. Next, we'll move from influence wielded quietly through systems to wealth showcased through some of the rarest, most iconic assets on the planet. The finance trophy asset titan turns financial capital into museum-grade, headline-making collectibles, and what he buys next will shock even seasoned observers. The finance trophy asset titan, turning capital into culture. Some billionaires see wealth as a tool for influence, others as a platform for innovation, but the finance trophy asset titan plays a different game. For them, money isn't just cash or equities. It's a way to acquire singular, irreplaceable assets that redefine markets and shape cultural perception. Each purchase, be it a skyscraper, a rare painting, or a historic artifact, is deliberate, strategic, and often public. Take Ken Griffin, founder of Citadel. His empire generates enormous liquidity from hedge funds and market making, which he then converts into marquee, headline-grabbing assets. In January 2019, he purchased the penthouse at 220 Central Park South for $238 million, the highest price ever paid for a U.S. home at that time. Days before, he had secured 3 Carlton Gardens in London for $122 million. These aren't just homes, they're status statements, tangible markers of financial power, and tools that shape the market around them. But real estate is only one layer. Trophy asset titans also curate museum-grade art and historical treasures. Griffin privately acquired Willem de Kooning's Interchange and Jackson Pollock's Number 17A for $500 million, instantly signaling cultural prominence. Beyond paintings, he purchased a first printing of the U.S. Constitution and a 150-million-year-old Stegosaurus fossil. Each piece transcends investment. They're physical manifestations of taste, scarcity, and influence. The playbook is clear. Liquidity engines generate excess capital, which is deployed into high-profile, one-of-a-kind assets. The aim is both financial and cultural. These purchases reset market expectations, establish benchmarks, and broadcast dominance. A single acquisition can redefine comps across cities or auction houses. For instance, Griffin's New York and Palm Beach purchases lifted market expectations, showing how a titan doesn't just participate in markets, he subtly reshapes them. Lifestyle signals align with the strategy. Wardrobe is understated, travel discreet, and visible opulence exists only in curated forms, art collections, architectural landmarks, or iconic real estate. The assets themselves become the signaling mechanism, turning ownership into cultural currency. But the finance trophy asset titan isn't immune to risk. Markets fluctuate. Rare collectibles can underperform, and prestige often outpaces liquidity. Yet the archetype thrives on scale, timing, and knowledge of when scarcity itself becomes a tool. The public sees only the headline-grabbing purchases. Behind the scenes, decades of capital management, tactical trading, and calculated patience fuel each acquisition. While it seems the playbook has maxed out in financial and cultural leverage, the next archetype emerges, where influence is built not on art, property, or finance, but on culture itself. The culture mogul takes celebrity, entertainment, and branding and turns them into multi-billion-dollar empires, combining fame, ownership, and lifestyle in ways that redefine wealth entirely. The culture mogul, turning influence into an empire. If the finance trophy asset titan commands markets and museums, the culture mogul commands attention, perception, and desire. These are billionaires who start with fame, music, film, or sports, but don't stop there. They convert cultural influence into scalable business empires, mixing ownership with storytelling in ways that create both wealth and social authority. Let's look at Jay-Z. His name alone carries cultural weight, but it's how he leverages that influence that sets him apart. He moved beyond music, using it as a springboard to acquire stakes in high-margin industries. Premium beverages like Armand de Brignac and Douce, tech platforms such as Tidal, and media ventures that extend both reach and control. Every move is about ownership and compounding influence, not mere celebrity endorsements. The mechanics are subtle, yet sophisticated. Scarcity and branding drive desire. Limited edition bottles, exclusive releases, and strategic collaborations amplify value while maintaining brand integrity. The mogul's cultural signal, red carpet appearances, statement watches, couture, feeds back into the enterprise, elevating product perception and driving margins without relying solely on traditional marketing. Location and lifestyle are also part of the strategy. Properties like Jay-Z and Beyoncé's Tadao Ando-designed Malibu estate aren't just homes. They're multi-purpose platforms for events, media content, and signaling taste. Every public appearance, every curated asset, reinforces both cultural and financial capital. Yet it's not only about consumption or display. The culture mogul is a systems-level thinker. Equity stakes, ownership structures, and distribution channels all interlock. Each venture amplifies the others. Media builds hype for beverages, which builds credibility for fashion, which in turn drives further brand expansion. The wealth is cumulative, but it's anchored in influence rather than just financial engineering. But this archetype carries unique risks. Cultural trends shift faster than markets. Public scrutiny, social media, and evolving tastes can rapidly alter brand perception. One misstep in signaling, one controversial deal, and the carefully constructed empire can wobble. Unlike a trophy asset titan, whose wealth is tethered to scarcity and fixed assets, the culture mogul rides the volatility of public attention, a resource that can compound exponentially or evaporate just as quickly. Now we understand that the mogul leverages culture to multiply wealth, but the next archetype, the dynasty builder, leverages family, inheritance, and multi-generational structures. Where the culture mogul converts influence into assets, the dynasty builder converts control into legacy, turning a family name into a sprawling, multi-sector empire that can endure for decades. The dynasty builder, family, empire, and legacy. If the culture mogul turns fame into fortune, the dynasty builder turns family into an enduring institution. This archetype doesn't just amass wealth, they construct sprawling empires that integrate multiple sectors, leveraging each business to reinforce the others, and ensuring that control and influence remains in the family for generations. Take the Ambanis of India as an example. Reliance Industries began as a single oil and petrochemical company, but under Mukesh Ambani's leadership, it evolved into a vast network spanning energy, telecom, retail, and consumer platforms. Each branch feeds the others. Jio's telecom infrastructure fuels Reliance Retail's digital expansion, while the conglomerate's integrated logistics give it negotiating leverage unmatched in the region. Every acquisition, every strategic partnership strengthens the family's ecosystem and compounds its influence. But what truly defines a dynasty builder isn't just market dominance. It's the orchestration of public spectacle as part of the family strategy. Weddings, cultural events, and even home properties become stages to display scale, taste, and authority. Antilia, the family's 27-story Mumbai residence, isn't just a home. It's a civic landmark and a functional base for hosting global guests like artists and heads of state. Similarly, the Nida Mukesh Ambani Cultural Center merges philanthropy with cultural theater, embedding the family name into the public consciousness whilst nurturing social and artistic capital. Succession planning is deliberate and visible. Heirs are positioned across the conglomerate, prepared to inherit not just assets, but institutional knowledge, networks, and decision-making authority. This ensures continuity and resilience, enabling the family to maintain control through economic cycles, regulatory shifts, and generational transitions. The wealth isn't just for consumption, it's for control, influence, and legacy. Other billionaire archetypes chase public attention, tech disruption, or cultural clout, but the dynasty builder's strategy is about permanence. Every move, from acquisitions to public celebrations, is calculated to fortify the family's multi-generational narrative. It's wealth as a living system, a meticulously constructed organism designed to endure. At this point, you probably feel you've seen the full spectrum of billionaire strategies. But the story only pivots to a different kind of blueprint: how all these archetypes intersect with global systems, markets, and society at large. If you want to see the forces that shape these billionaires' empires on a global stage, check out our next video, Billionaire Power Plays: How Wealth Shapes the World.